Welcome to Clash of Health. Thanks for being here today. I want to make this video, and it's in some ways a follow up to the video I made earlier today. This video might not come out on the same day as the video that I did post earlier, but it is in follow up because it talks about the Lyrans and how this was a group of beings that potentially existed millions of years ago who were naive and vulnerable to the dominion of another group of beings called the draconic or Draco beings. And the Draco beings basically wanted to harvest the resources of the Lyrans and kick them off their place of existence, their land, and take away their natural resources. And I think that what happened in the past is happening now. I do relate this to what has happened in Asheville. I feel like as I talked about, Hurricane Helene was not it was not just an accident, that there was some manipulation for resources here. I think when you control water, it is you control people, and this apparently happened eons ago with the Lyrans. They were vulnerable to being controlled by Draco because Draco went after the resources, one of which was their water. So it's interesting that this is all coming up for me now, and one of the things that, and I'm going to put the information Debbie Solaris put together about Draco and the Lyrans in this video also, so you can kind of track what I'm talking about and how it might mirror to today. I'm not going to get too much down the rabbit hole of that right now, and the different groupings of subsets of, the Lyra and Vega, and the feline people and the draconic dinosaurs, most of which, many of which are good, but many of which aren't. And then the mid-levels, which are basically what we might liken to the Cabal, the first and second group, and then the minions, the slaves, those who do the work of the other because they've been pulled into the dark by enticement or by fear. So they're enslaved. And I think many people on Earth right now are slaves to dark forces because they're afraid. They're afraid to open their eyes to what's going on. They're afraid that if they speak out, something bad will happen. And, of course, that is a fear that's legitimate. So given that, I'm going to ask my guides, my highest beings, to protect me as I put this information out there and to protect anyone who's listening to it, so that it is going out to the people who need to hear it, and the people who are going to benefit from it from the highest light. So anyway, one of the theories about the draconian beings is they like to harvest, humans, basically. And I do think that there is some of this going on, this sex enslavement and harvesting humans and things like that, which sounds so dark and sci-fi, but I do think it's happening. I think it's happening on this plane. I also think it's happening in the tunnels underground. A lot has come through for me in the Akash about these tunnels and what is happening, especially the trafficking of children and women and probably men too, in these tunnels. Today's video is going to focus on how the Cabal draconic beings want to genetically engineer us to really get away from our natural ability of inner sovereignty. And this has apparently been going on for millions of years, genetic manipulation. And of course, with breeding and crossbreeding of different ET groups, this has occurred. And it's, maybe not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you know, we intermingle with different groups of people here on Earth, and animals, dogs that are like purebred animals sometimes have more vulnerabilities than those that are hybrid, mutts, so to speak. So it's one thing when you do it based on your own sovereign decisions, and it's another when you're being manipulated, genetically manipulated. And I do think that the vaccine was one form of genetic manipulation, because I think that our DNA holds the treasures of our sovereignty and our control and our ability to connect with the divine. And when we look at DNA, it's the one thing that you carry with you and you carry over into your ancestry, from your ancestry to your ancestry. And the more we're learning about epigenetics, the more we're understanding that what I do today will tweak my genetic code. And genetic inborn errors of metabolism, I think that's what they're called now, or mutations as they used to be called, um, or tweaks or SNPs or whatever you want to call them, are based on behaviors. And there's different groups of beings, Mayans and American Indians, that talk about what we do today can affect not only generations that are coming up, but also generations behind us. So we actually have control over more than we even can imagine. So I do remember when 2020 went down, I remember there was some kind of sporting event that was canceled. And I was really curious about it. I was like, wow, I know how much control these professional sports have in terms of how much money they bring in, and how so many of these dudes have like committed heinous crimes in some cases, and how they're back on the playing field after a slap on the wrist, a fine, or maybe even a short jail time. And how money really is it's in our world. And yet this professional sporting event was canceled. And I knew that this was big. And I was just like, And at the time, I was living with my former husband, and he was listening to the news, and he was kind of telling me about the news. And I was like, this is just so much mind control, so much manipulation. And then things got closed in schools and things like that. And I was like, what is going on here? And then, there was defamation of character based on people who wanted to try alternatives to the mainstream um, shot that was coming. And then I was hearing about gain of function research and how there was a slap on the wrist because it was happening here in the United States, where we were using like viruses, cross viruses with humans and animals, and then it was taken to you know, the Wuhan lab, and I got a sense that it wasn't just the Chinese that were in cahoots with all this, and how timely that this vaccine got let out of this lab, or released from this lab when there was this vaccine that was just being approved with all these companies. And I can remember one of my friends was in one of the trials, I think for J&J, and she wanted to know where she could put side effects on this app that she was given. And she was told that it wasn't necessary that she report it. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like and she got defensive, and she thought, well, maybe it was her and a mistake she was making. And I thought, you used to help solve computer issues at a workplace, and you don't understand how to use an app? I mean, you're very computer literate. So it all just seems so fishy. And then the vaccine came out, and it was like, okay, the people who were not wanting the vax were losing their job, and they had to, and some of them were like defamed and fired, and yeah, it just got like weirder to me. And then what really was curious to me was how it was safe for pregnant women, a low risk group, a cohort, women and children, babies, that they should get this vaccine. And it just harkened to the days where there was a like a classification for pregnancy, A to X, and X are like harmful substances that are known to hurt the fetus, like you know, I forget the I'm forgetting the drugs, but anyway, drugs that have been known to not benefit, there's no way you could justify the benefit of these drugs. And then there was the A drugs that are totally safe. Well, nothing was A, like nothing, not even vitamins. Vitamins were B, where there wasn't proven any harm to taking these, and there would be a benefit. And then the C drugs were like in between. Like, you really don't want to take them unless you have to. There could be some harm, but there definitely could be some benefit, like psych meds, maybe. Like, I don't know, I think SSRIs during different stages of pregnancy could be considered like C drugs. And then D drugs were like Paxil, which is an SSRI, where it's not a good idea to take it. The benefit is not going to be outweighed by the risk. And so, coming from a perspective, I used to prescribe medication, very careful. I also worked with essential oils and, trained as an herbalist. And even like lavender, like you got to be careful with lavender, letting someone smell lavender, like eating fish. Well, there is mercury in fish. So it's understandable. Deli meat, pregnant women had to be careful of deli meat. But these vaccines, they're just approved, they're rushed through the FDA, low risk females who are pregnant, and yet they're being encouraged, told by their doctors to have these vaccines. It just was really kind of curious for me. Kids, babies, like really? They weren't dying of COVID. It was older people who were dying of COVID, or people who were at high risk, who had metabolic disorders, obese, diabetic, heart disease, COPD. Those were the people at risk. Now, how do you deal with those chronic risks? Do you just tell them to get this vaccine that's going to change potentially their DNA, at least the expression of their DNA, their messenger RNA? Or do you maybe tell them like, hey, do a lot of public service announcements, like, eat organic fruits and vegetables, eat whole foods, stay away from um, trans fats, sugar. Were we seeing those commercials? I don't know. I don't have a TV. I don't think they were out there. Roy Cooper, the governor, did all these like I don't know, what are they called, where they have like open forums where you can call in and find out information about COVID and, the quarantines and all that. I was on a call. Actually was one of the first people to get in line in the queue to ask my question. And I wanted to ask about like, what can we do from, instead of like purporting factory farming, how can we maybe talk about eating well-sourced meats and, fruits and vegetables, and having more access to these kinds of education and services for especially people who don't have easy access, or people who live in poverty. So I'm in the queue, and then they're like, okay, you're up next. What's your question? And I told them, did I get to ask my question? No, I was taken out of the queue. That was not a question that could be asked. We actually, I think it was almost like a joke, like people were gaining all this weight. It was like the freshman 20, it was the 20 COVID weight gain. The bars were open. Some of the bars here were open. I can remember coming back from um, a retreat. Yes, I actually went to a retreat during 2020. It was by, well, I won't even tell you, don't want to get them in trouble in case somebody listens to it about them. But anyway, came back from a retreat and was going to go pick up some food at a bar. I went in totally open. Nobody had masks on. Yet going out in nature, like people were wearing masks, all the restrooms were closed. It was almost like we were being discouraged to get out in nature. It just seemed a little bit nonsensical, I would say. It didn't seem to make sense to me. So anyway, I did some channeling back then, and I am being um, encouraged to by my guides to kind of talk about this. And I do so with definitely some trepidation, not because of anything, but I don't ever want what I put out to be harmful. And I know many people have been vaccinated. I think 80%, I think, of people in the United States have had at least one of the shots, which of course, vaccine is a misnomer because we all know it doesn't prevent COVID. And it's not like people are anti-vax who don't really buy into the COVID vaccine, because it's not a vaccine. If you ask me, it doesn't prevent, a vaccine prevents a disease. You have the polio vaccine, you pretty much don't get polio, right? If you have the COVID vaccine, we all know people have had COVID multiple times after getting multiple shots of the COVID um, vaccine. So my worry is that some of this information is going to be upsetting for people who have had the shots. So I do invite you not to listen to the rest of this video if that could be the case. Um, but here goes. I want to put some of this out here today just because for whatever reason, I'm being encouraged to do so. Okay, this was back in 2021. You indeed are helping children by taking a stance on the vaccine or whatever one wants to call it. We are calling it this, as this is how it has been named in thought form. It is the greatest tragedy to humankind. Let me repeat, there has been no other assault on humans than this. It is the greatest tragedy to humankind. It will need to be reckoned with and will be over time so as to unravel the truths of what lies within. And for now, just watch it unfold as it will start to unfold soon. We are with you and hold space for you and others who oppose this tragedy. Just being on earth now, you earthlings who give voice to what is happening with truth, helps with this grand illumination. But do know that the lies and unsettlingness of all this will take more than human power to overcome. And we are with you in spirit to arrest this process of annihilation, as this is what it is truly meant to be. And I ask, can you speak more on it? It is hard to capture what has gone on behind the scenes, and for us to do so might create undue fear, and this is not our intention today. You know in your heart what has gone on, and to know this is enough. You will see more truths coming out as the humans can handle them, and each human has its own palette for receiving these truths, and they are many to be revealed. In some ways, the horrors will cause a sense of awe, for the power that is gifted to the humans is beyond belief. So in other words, I think that the capacity of our codes, our DNA codes, is beyond our ability to even believe we have. You are much more able to create the amazing life forms and beauty than you realize. And conversely, the horror of the perverse is there to be had by those who take the dark path and pursue it. So do know that we have the ultimate power, as the power of our light team of love will prevail. So for now, watch the sci-fi film unfold as this is what it has become, and know that while you watch and hold witness with truth and love, you are really our light beamers who are shining on all. And I'm like, really? Yes, it is so. What is going on behind the scenes? I ask. A tremendous amount of scuffling to get the final works done, just as we watch and witness them. You speak just as we watch and witness them. I say to them, I say to the guides, you speak as them, but aren't we them? And they say, I speak of them as they do not hold the truth of real, and love is all that is real. They represent a thought form that has been projected out into the universe to divine or devise a polarity to truth so as to illuminate it. There can be no elimination of truth in human form without the polarity of the other. We know that you're anxious to move forward, but you remember that each moment there's a tremendous opportunity, so seize the moment. And then that's truly a crime against humanity, the worst kind of crime, as trusting lambs of the medical establishment have been led to slaughter, and the reckoning will echo in the hills and valleys forevermore. God is most displeased with this crime against humanity, and many will be held to the ultimate accountability. Step aside and do not get involved in this vast, let us say vast, cataclysmic karma. Heads will roll quite literally, as you have seen. You have seen it, and it will come true. So I got a vision of heads rolling someday. Do not get involved. We say step aside. Let it go. The ball is rolling too fast. You cannot do anything about it. And then let's see what else they're saying. And then I say, is the vax so bad? And they say, we don't always think in terms of bad or good, but we are not pleased with the vax as it is truly trying to cheat God, and God is truth and law, and God doesn't take kindly on those who try to annihilate the existence of his or her, whatever you want to call us, children. This is indeed what the vax is meant to do, annihilation of existence. It is not that powerful, but it has the merit to do great, let us repeat, great harm to humanity. This is playing out in far reaches of the world, but it is most hidden. When it is illuminated, great suffering will occur, as it cannot be undone. Truly I ask, yes, this is so. You question, but in your heart of hearts, you know this is true. Could it be my ego wants to be right, and they say, love your ego as it is you, and you cannot separate from it. And then another day, they say the vax is tampering with internal equipment so as to not to allow this very complex system of the inner workings of the DNA sequencing, which is part of the karmic path. This is a problem, as all is held in one's DNA, and to unduly tamper with this process is forbidden. Now we know that you wonder how could this occur, and this indeed was part of the records that would occur, but the outcome is not fully known, as this changes the sequence of events and that all in that are in the records. Now in this way will provide an opportunity for those who haven't had the vax to explore ways to help humanity. In some ways, those who got the vax will be limited with an encodement that is not theirs and in the way of free will. The vax provides the body with this automation that supersedes the natural process of life. Does this help? Are my words clear? And then, let's see. They also say the vaccine is a crime against humanity that has been constructed by nature. And you can think of this in terms of the age Aquarian as your book deems it, but there is a path to God and freedom that has been obstructed by those in power who have the malfeasance intent towards what is just and right. And this is what makes it especially a crime against humanity. as people are taking something into their bodies based on malicious and malfeasance intention, and this now becomes their victimized karma. Does this make sense? The motive of what is behind the vaccine, as well as the motive of why someone would get it, work together to create an interlocking of karmic collide, which has had and will continue to have devastating consequences. It will be up to each of you to decide this. We do not see this as good from a humanitarian terms. We understand the reasoning that we are at this place in time and that what you deem history, but there are tragedies nonetheless, and the dualistic picture is showing you this. Now, if we're talking in non-dual terms, maybe this isn't so in quite the same way. As far up you get in looking at life, then it becomes less personal and just this. Does this make greater sense? We hope so. For today, we hope that your day is filled with balance and love and a sense of security. And they go on and on. Let's see. So then I also, I can't really find it now. I'm looking back through my notes. There was something that said that the effect of the quote vaccine would be based on someone's karma, and that the effect it would have would be based on each individual's karma. And so this came all up again recently, and I said, I'm talking to spirit in my way of communicating with through automatic writing, and they say you have questions. And I said, automatic writing I did back in 2021 about the vaccine. I'm asking now, is it accurate? And they say it was the truth of the words that were sent to you from the mouths of those who want to speak but cannot have the voice that you have. And I said, tell me more. And then they say there are contingents on your planet who would like to tell truths, but they're prohibited from obstacles in doing so. And I said, are you speaking of people? And they say, yes, we are. And then I ask, are you speaking of physicians? And they say, yes, we are. And I say, are you speaking of the spiritual realms? And they say, we are. Then I say, are you speaking of those who work for pharma? And they say, in part, we are. What of the vaccine? As we said to you previously, we will put these words to the truth of our being and the being upholding truths that the evil done is irreparable. We say, yes, this is so. It cannot be repaired by human hands. I ask, can it be repaired by God? And they say, all can be repaired by God. It isn't easy to undo what has been done based on free will. And I ask, what about children? And they say, children are held in a different way. Consent has an age on the human level, and choices are made on the soul level. This is complex, but there are children that have special protection. And I say some children, and they say most children. And I say, why not all? And they say they cannot explain the details of this at this moment, as it's beyond the comprehension of my soul to understand. And I say, this is a first. And they say, yes, in a way it is. What should I share about the vaccine? And they say, we say that there are truths ready to be shared, and a container through divine will of your soul and the soul of God will hold the space for these truths to be shared. And I say, I don't feel comfortable upsetting others. And they say some things will be said that will provoke people, and this will be unfortunate. It should still be done, we say, and think so. I say, you think? And they say, yes, we send thought forms to your mind, and this is how you receive when difficult subjects come up for you, basically. How can God work with people to undo the damage of the vaccine? And they say the vaccine creates misalignments in the body, mind, and soul, which prevents it from receiving the full light of the God form as the DNA in you is truly aligned with divinity. And I say, what about hybriding of humans, as was done previously? As I mentioned earlier in this video, I talked about like hybrids. They answer basically that any kind of hybriding that was done in the past also created a misalignment with source. And I say, do we all have it? Do we all have like hybriding? not just from this current vaccine, but from all genetic manipulation throughout time. And they say most of you do. They say not all, but most. And I said, do I have? And they say, you have multiple character flaws, but they are they are mostly your own. And I said, my own? And I ask, I don't have genetic tampering, and they say not much. And I ask why, and they say there is a track record of your existence, and we aren't at a place with you in this moment to explain this. So interesting. So I say, um, so I ask, my faults then are character flaws, and I'm working on them in this lifetime, and they say, yes, this is correct. Back to the backs, how can things be undone? At this moment, they can be helped or hindered by future behaviors and choices. Each person will need to intuit with their own guardian souls and God, and this is not for you to worry about. If they have questions, they will be guided. And then I say, should I read on the vax? And they say, you should follow your heart. What does it say? And I say, it says yes, but my gut is uneasy. And they say, it can wait for now. Let it go and go about your beautiful day. And I wrote that probably a couple of weeks ago. But today and the last couple of days, it feels right to put this out there. As you know, a medical professional or nursing professional, I almost feel an obligation to support the other voice that has not been adequately heard from multiple perspectives, from a nurse perspective, from a spiritual perspective, and from a personal aligned with my own truth perspective. So find out what resonates with you and what doesn't, and I relish in your own sovereignty for following your own guiding light. And that's what I want for all of humanity, to be able to find what most resonates with our heart and soul, not to be told what to think and what to do. Have a good day.